So there's a question that I've had to ask myself, and that a lot of my my non-native Spanish-speaking friends have had to ask themselves as they've advanced to certain levels in their Spanish. And that question is, what's next? Like, once you're able to communicate, once you feel comfortable, once the language is almost second nature, once cognitively you process and produce the language almost as easy as you produce your native language, what are the next steps? And so you kind of, once you get to that point, I know everybody's not there, but once you get to that super advanced point, you reach, to me, a second plateau. I think the first plateau that most of us reach is when we're at the intermediate level and we can communicate, and we've passed the big hump of understanding the most difficult aspects of Spanish grammar. And so I think a lot of us experience a plateau there where it's like, oh, where am I gonna, I can't really see myself improving. But with time, during the intermediate plateau, you will feel that you're progressing. What happens though when you're advanced is that that progress is not something that you tangibly feel. And so in this video, I want to talk about what you can do once you've reached, again, not native level fluency. I'm not a native Spanish speaker, but once you've reached an advanced level, what are some things that you can do to keep the process fun, to keep yourself engaged, to keep yourself mentally stimulated with the Spanish language? And I think that these things could apply to you learning any language, but let's get into them. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this first point explicitly on my channel, but I know I've hinted at it a couple of times, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and so this is not going to be something that's groundbreaking, but what I found for myself that's extremely helpful is I've completely changed my perspective in terms of studying the language or using the language. I kind of view my level right now as like enjoy mode. It's like the dessert after eating your vegetables mode. Again, weird analogy, but what do I mean? I have put in the years of hard work, the years of studying, the years of, active studying. And so now I'm at a point where I can just ease into the language, sit down, kick my feet up and relax into the language and learn in that way. And so what does that look like? Again, redundant, but it's important to mention. That looks like watching movies that I enjoy in Spanish. That looks like spending time with people that I like spending time with, using the language. That involves, sorry, I got distracted by a car. That involves, just basic things that you guys know, listening to podcasts, the same things that I would do in my native language now that I'm at a level at which I'm comfortable, the same things that I would do, again, I'm getting distracted again, police driving by, but the same things that I would do in English, I do them in Spanish now. Reading books, making new friends, going to events, at work, making sure that people know that I speak Spanish. Next year, I'm gonna be working in a situation where I'll have to use Spanish even more than I do now, and I use it rather frequently now. And so, again, just enjoying the language, taking the stress off of like, what should I be doing to study? Like, am I not studying enough? Am I not being an active student in the language? Your time, once you get to this point, your time for active studying is past. It's the equivalent of me right now actively studying the English language. Like what? Like that doesn't make sense. There's no room for me to do that. I can still improve and learn new words in English, but there's no grammar structure in English that I don't know. I learned them all probably by like 7th grade. Maybe not, probably like 10th grade. But you guys get my point, right? There's no more studying English for me, right? There's improving my English by maybe improving my diction or improving my writing skills or expanding my vocabulary, but there's no improving tangibly in terms of my understanding en cuanto a mi conocimiento del idioma. So the same thing applies once you get to a certain point in Spanish. So again, relax, ease into the language, and just consume and produce the language, and that becomes your studying. So again, remove the idea once you get to an advanced level of like, oh, I need to be actively studying, I need to be learning. Just read, write, listen, and speak, and you're fine. The next thing that I think that is super important to do once you've reached an advanced level in Spanish or whatever target language you're learning is to create an immersive environment where you don't have to consciously think about using the language anymore. Because again, that piggybacks off the first point. You consuming and producing the language at this point is what your studying should be. And so if you create an environment where you do that as much as possible, you're creating an environment where you're studying. And so even though you feel like you've plateaued and that you're not progressing, that consistent consumption in an immersive environment does the trick for you. Now, you guys know that, let me say this, right? I'm not saying I'm completely in an immersive environment in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, in terms of Spanish, but I'm thinking back on my time spent in Panama, and I don't think that I spent more time in deep conversations in my week in Panama. I don't think my Spanish speaking time was more in Panama, a Spanish speaking country, than it is on an average week in Georgia. I'm gonna say that again. The week that I spent in Panama a couple of months ago, I think I spoke less Spanish, less deep, like deep conversation. I think I had fewer deep conversations where I was actually challenged to use the language at an advanced level. I think I had less time speaking Spanish like that in Panama than I do on an average week in Georgia. Now, again, somebody could argue you were on vacation, you don't know anybody there, so it's not comparable, and I get that point. But my point in saying that is to say that you can still create an immersive environment wherever you live. You do not have to be in a Spanish-speaking country to do so. So again, here I have to use Spanish at my job sometimes, especially if we get students that have just come to the United States. Like I said, I mentioned it before, I have friends here that I don't hang out with all the time, but that I do speak with rather frequently, and I hang out with every now and then, that are native Spanish speakers and that are impressed by my Spanish, and so we hang out and I use the language then. Shout out to my friend Sharon, shout out to you. I talk to Sharon all the time. Sometimes we get on the phone and talk, not a lot, I don't have a lot of time, but sometimes we do. I'm talking to her in Spanish. I've just created an immersive environment where I live, and that is your task. That's your next step if you want to feel like you're not in that advanced plateau, is what I'm coining it right now. You just have to, because at that point you still are going to improve. You're still going to improve. Yeah. Now, of course, let me add here that immersive environment could involve you moving to another country, volunteering in another country, working in another country. But as you guys probably know, if you've seen any of my videos, I don't view that as a panacea, as like a fix-all in terms of creating an immersive environment. Because again, I just know too many people that have moved to another country, that live in the U.S., that still are they're in a country where their target language is spoken, and they're in an immersive, quote unquote, environment, but they don't pick up the language. They're not actively immersing themselves, even though they're in a country where the language is spoken. And again, personally, right now, I'm just kind of traveled out. Like, even for me personally, just a side note, if I'm going to travel this year, like, it'll either be in the private group that we have. It'll be me going to visit my family in Savannah, Georgia, or going to visit my dad's side of the family in Trinidad and Tobago. Like, I'm not trying to travel this year. And so again, I'm a little biased in that regard. You can create an immersive environment by traveling, but it doesn't have to be that way. I've done that in the rural suburbs of Georgia just fine, and I'm speaking Spanish on a daily, and I think more than I would. I don't know. I can't say it's more or less based on my, if let's say I worked at a school in Colombia somewhere, like, yeah, I'm gonna get more practice. But if I'm just like, I don't know, living as a digital nomad in Colombia and working from 9 to 5 in my apartment and then leaving to go get something to eat, go to the gym and come home, no, like that's not any more immersion than what I'm getting here. You guys get the point. The next thing that you should do once you've reached a high level in Spanish, or once you've reached a plateau, and this could again apply to the intermediate or the advanced level, it's going to piggyback off of my life philosophy, which is related to always maintaining a level of humility. Even right now, I can have a conversation comfortably, confidently about almost anything. Again, I might make some mistakes. I may not say it as eloquently or as formally as a native speaker would, but anybody that I'm speaking with about any topic is going to understand what I'm saying. I'm going to be able to communicate my ideas very effectively. But because I try to maintain, not try, I maintain a humble spirit. I try to maintain humility in anything that I do. I know that there's so many things that I still do not know. Now, why is that an important psychological paradigm to view your advanced level of Spanish from, right? It's important to view, you want to be confident, but it's important to understand and recognize like, hey, I still have so much more to learn, because that psychologically can keep you motivated. Again, we're talking about feeling like, what's next? Like, what do I do now? Like, I've got, you've reached the mountaintop after a long hike, and you're like, oh, that was anticlimactic. Well, to avoid that feeling in the language learning process, once you've gotten to an advanced level, again, I'm discovering these things myself, start to recognize that there's so many things that you still don't know. You can be confident in your abilities and still recognize, like, there's so much vocabulary that I still don't know. I learned the word for tongs the other day. I think it's pinzas, or pinzas, one of the two. I just keep a running list of words, of like new words. I learned how to say to pinch somebody the other day, which is pellizcar, I think. And I'm learning these words by either through my students or my friends here that I'm speaking with, and they're saying things, and I'm like, hey, okay. I'm learning about, I got the word sketch here, boceto. So I'm just saying, I maintain a level of humility, and even just looking at this list makes me psychologically excited, because it's like, oh, I have so much more to learn. And that disposition, again, can help you avoid the stagnation, the somewhat emptiness feeling that you get once you achieve a goal, if that makes any sense. The next recommendation that I have for you all, and that is helping me even though I'm not actively pursuing it right now, is to create some tangible goal for your Spanish. And a secondary recommendation here is to maybe put something, make something, use something as a measure for the completion of that goal. I'm thinking in Spanish, thinking of the verb cumplir. But yeah, basically for me, right, let me speak to what I'm doing. Again, after I got to an advanced level, I started to feel like, oh, what's next? What do I do? And I've been talking to some friends, and they've had the same feeling once they've gotten to high levels in their target languages. And so I have never been a fan of taking like a formal test to evaluate my formal level of Spanish, like academic tests like that. I just didn't see the purpose in it, because my goal was always just to communicate, to be able to, use the language to travel, to work, just be confident in the language, and I've gotten to that point. But now my goals have changed, and the idea of actually locking in and studying for a C1, or I think C1 is, yeah, a C1 Spanish exam it is something that kind of ignites a fire in me again, to sit down and study and to focus on specific elements of Spanish that I may not be strong in, and vocabulary that I may not be strong in, and like writing conventions, like where do I put a symbol, where do I put a tilde, what sounds more natural, what sounds more formal when you're writing, when you're speaking, things like that, shifting between formal and informal speech. All of those things are things that I like to improve, and taking a formal test, it motivates me to improve those things. If I don't have a goal like that can motivate me, it will be less intrinsically motivating to do so. So yeah, my neighbor's coming out staring at me. Give me a second. And the last thing that I recommend to you guys is something that I do, and I think a lot of people do once they've reached mastery in something. And I'll use an analogy to reference this. Not sure if you've ever heard like athletes speak to, them reaching the pinnacle of success, getting to a point at which they dominated their sport, they won championships, all those things. And like they thought that would be the moment where they felt the best, but the moments that they felt the best were when they were pursuing that goal. We all know this, achieving the goal is less satisfying than pursuing it. But either way, what a lot of those athletes also reference when they finish playing sports or when they retire. And again, I'm not saying I've reached the pinnacle of Spanish. I'm just making a simple analogy here. I know somebody's going to be like, this guy needs to humble himself. He still sounds like a gringo. He still makes mistakes with gender sometimes. Tranquilo, por favor. Yo entiendo que no hablo español perfecto. Entiendo. Pero me puedo defender bien, creo. Mi acento fue un poco raro cuando estaba hablando. Pero no, ¿Qué estaba diciendo? Okay, so a lot of these athletes, when they retire and they have reached the pinnacle of success and achieved their goals, they tend to have a desire to go back and help people that are earlier in the process, help younger athletes, coach a sport. And again, you would think like, well, you've reached the pinnacle of success. Like, why don't you just fade off into the wind? You know, like you've done it, you've checked it off. But you kind of re-spark your fire or your interest for something by helping others get the same feeling that you got when you were pursuing your goal. So again, an athlete remembers being a 13-year-old wanting to go to the NFL. And even though they've achieved that goal and done all of it, it becomes satisfying for them. And they are able to relive that experience through the 13-year-olds of the next generations, helping them pursue the same goal. They get that same satisfaction. So why am I making this long-winded analogy? I'm at a point now where, again, I'm not perfect, but helping other people experience the enrichment that Spanish has brought to my life, the fulfillment that learning another language, Spanish in this case, has brought to my life, is something that I'm actively helping others with. And I'm getting enjoyment, more fulfillment, and I'm almost getting the same feelings that I got when I was learning Spanish by helping these people learn. I can see the light bulb going off. I can see the same things that I went through, I see other people going through, and it's fulfilling, and it's making me, I don't know, it's the desire and spark and love for the language has never gone away, but it did go down a little bit. O sea, se bajó un poquito, because I just have gotten good with the language. But either way, you guys get the point. I'm rambling. I don't like repeating myself. So yeah, helping others can help you stay motivated, can keep that fire there, and can, I don't know, it can just help. Also, it doesn't have to be you helping somebody learn Spanish. Going back to using the language as a tool, you can help a native Spanish speaker learn English using Spanish. That is so fulfilling. I can't express how fulfilling that is. I do that on a daily basis at work. I don't only work with Spanish speakers, by the way, but I'm just saying the ones that I can use Spanish with, my Spanish skills with, it's super fulfilling because it's like, wow, I remember I couldn't even say I want coconut water, and now I'm teaching you how to say things in English. I'm making comparisons to English and Spanish, and I'm articulating all of this in a language that I thought that I'd never be able to speak. So helping someone else learn English also can give you that same fulfillment. But either way, I hope you guys get the point with this video. I hope it was a helpful video. Again, these are things that you can do actively. Really, a lot of them are passive, but things that you can do after you've reached a certain level, particularly the advanced plateau that a lot of us experience. And it's not really a plateau in terms of your growth. It's a slowdown of your growth because you have less growth to do. You're just learning new words and stuff. But either way, just when that fire kind of goes away once you've achieved your goal. And so hopefully this video helped. Espero que les haya gustado, les haya servido también. Yo sé que he estado un poco ausente en mi canal. Es porque en marzo, casi todos los fines de semana, yo tenía algo que hacer. El cumpleaños de mi hermano, el cumpleaños del hijo de uno de mis mejores amigos. Yo tenía muchos trabajos, muchas tareas de la universidad. Estoy estudiando otra vez. Entiendo que es un poco, a mí me gusta, no sé, estudiar, pero sí me toca. Entonces, perdón por estar tan ausente, pero tengo muchos videos que están por salir. Entonces, espero que les gusten. Chicos, chao y hasta el próximo. Listo.